Good morning. We're glad that you could join us as we discuss the sermon with Murray that he preached from 2 Corinthians chapter 9 yesterday. So before I ask a few follow-up questions to you, would you give us a brief overview of what you preached on?
Yeah, and especially in light of the fact that 2 Corinthians chapter 8, which was your passage last week, is so similar to 2 Corinthians chapter 9, we decided we'd wear the exact same outfit today. Can I say outfit?
Sure. It is.
2 Corinthians chapter 9 is about the idea of giving generously and how Paul is encouraging the Corinthian church to give in such a way that they are able to see their work of giving as reflected in their own understanding of the heart of the Father and how generous He is, and how the desire of God the Father is to provide for people spiritually and physically through the act of giving, and how it brings joy to the giver and also to other people that not only receive the gift, but other people. It causes this idea of a high tide raises all ships. It kind of brings this idea that as you give, other people are encouraged to do the same.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, and I talked about this last week, about how there was a need. This is the context of it. There was a need. There was famine in Jerusalem. We don't know whether it was because there was a poor crop or because there was war or whatever. We just know that there was a great need there. And they were taking this gift up, or Paul was taking this gift up to take back there to meet real tangible needs. But he also talks about how there's a mutual encouragement that takes place. Talk a little bit about that and how we might see that here in the year 2021 in our own setting.
Yeah, well, in that particular instance, so the churches that had less, the Macedonian churches, responded in this overwhelming generosity that provided an example that Paul uses for the Corinthian church, who were much better off financially, to then say, look how your brothers and sisters in Christ have responded to needs of other brothers and sisters in Christ that they might not have ever met. Won't you respond likewise? And I think in today's world, though we might not know what one another gives, when we participate in giving sacrificially, generously, we are providing not only meaningful resources for other people to benefit from, but we're actually providing a wonderful example of our own understanding of the gospel to each other. So when giving becomes something that's cheerful and not sort of begrudging, then it just kind of oozes out of my pores, right? And so when it oozes out of my pores and it becomes a part of my conversation, not in a way that I'm bragging, but in a way that I'm just talking about how the Lord is blessed, and so we are to be a blessing to other people. You pick up on it. Other people pick up on it, and that causes like feelings in them. Similar obedience, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, along the same lines, towards the end of your sermon, you mentioned how preaching on stewardship was one of the things that you dreaded early on in your ministry, and how now recently it's become one of your favorite things. Compare and contrast your attitudes, early on to where they are now and how you've gotten there.
Yeah, it's really true. In the earlier days of ministry, I really dreaded talking about generosity, and I think for two reasons. One, I was keenly aware of how the topic has been or tends to be treated and people's expectations or their experience of that topic that are in the room. But also, in a second way that's probably more pronounced, I was concerned about how people might sort of stereotype me. Oh, here we go, talking about giving again. But the way that the Lord has actually done a work in my own particular heart, just personally here, is that there's really not many more practical ways to express your own understanding of what God did for you in Jesus Christ. When you give generously, I use the word, when we impoverish ourselves for the sake of someone else, that's the gospel in shoes. And so it's a remarkable opportunity for us to consider how we can take something that's very tangible and practical, albeit potentially difficult, and see God work in amazing ways. There are a few times of the year that I hear more stories of God's faithfulness to his people than towards the end of the year as they consider end of the year giving. I suppose it's the end of the year, but it really should be a conversation that we talk about all year long.
Oh. Well, thank you very much for your work and your encouragement towards us, and we thank you for joining us, and we wish you a happy Thanksgiving with your family and friends as we give thanks to the Lord for all the wonderful things seen and unseen, that he has blessed us with through his Son, Jesus Christ.